No, that's from last meeting here. Let me clear your space up a little bit for you, Danny. There you go.
That's okay.
And started the recording.
Okay, I need
2
my little
minutes.
picture.
What?
Oh. Okay. Danny, I'm taking my. You guys are so quick. I don't know what you're gonna do with that. Okay. Kevin, I'm taking a picture of you. Oh, you're getting posed. Okay.
You know, if you touch them, they lose their magic.
Yeah.
Oh
Darn.
Okay, thank you.
They don't get any less creepy.
Thanks, bye.
Bye, elves. Forever out this time. Come on. Cool, you have these fancy phones with clocks on. We'd probably started the meeting by now. Yep. We've been calling time and temperature. What was the number? You remember?
1212?
555-1212.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. I will call the December 19th DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Daniels.
Here.
Tripp.
Here.
Hanamichael.
Here.
Lane.
Here.
McMorrin.
Here.
All are present.
All right, I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item tonight is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approved minutes from the December 5th City Council meeting, approved ordinance number 987, approved renewal of 2025 CMB licenses, approved contract with USD 232 for purchase of public art piece, approved resolution 2053 declaring boundaries of the city of DeSoto, and approved contract renewal with Whether or Not. Is there any item anyone would wish to remove for further discussion? If not, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
McMorrin.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Tripp.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Item 2 is called to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public? All right, I'm not seeing any takers, so we will go to item 3, old business. A, consider bids and approve contract for City Hall remodel project. Cameron.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You guys are well aware at this point that we've been working on the City Hall renovation project for a little over a year now with design. We sent it out to bid in October. The bid was open for 5 weeks. We had a pre-bid meeting that was very well attended, so much so that we had to move location from this room down to the gym. There was so much interest in the project, a lot of subcontractors as well as general contractors. We received bids on November 13th, and the bids are listed there as follows from Icon Structures, Centric, and Excel Constructors. As part of that bid package, there was a deduct alternate, which would remove from the scope any interior finish of the lower level. That includes restrooms, a kitchenette, and a rework of the ADA ramp to provide office or room space there. As well as there was an add alternate. Part of that add alternate was throughout design. We've realized that there's a lot of meeting space, conference room, and in today's world, most of those meetings are conducted both in person as well as virtually, and there's a need for AV equipment similar to what's in this room with display screens, cameras, microphones, to where you can have video conferencing available. That was an add alternate, was for the general contractor to basically provide all of that equipment and install it as a turnkey package, to where we would have it all under one contract and wouldn't have to take that scope separately, send it out to bid, and then have a different contract with a different contractor while there's another contractor working on the project as a whole. Icon Structures had the low bid for the base package, as well as they were still the low bid with the add alternate. And if you were to consider the deduct alternate, they were still the low bid. They were far enough under on their base bid that regardless of how you looked at the add alternate or the deduct alternate, they were still the low bidder. We did our due diligence, contacted a couple of owners that had Icon Structures do work for them, one of those being USD 232 here in DeSoto, to get feedback, make sure that they were sufficiently qualified and staffed to do a project of this scale and deliver a project that we could all be happy with. Through all the due diligence, SFS Architecture also looked at the unit prices to compare what their unit prices were for certain things such as tile repair, plaster repair, terrazzo tile repair. We've identified in the plans the amount that we believe would be necessary, but being in a structure that's over 90 years old, there is the potential to run into additional items. So we asked every contractor to provide us a unit price. That way, if there's additional, that price is already set as part of the bid. That gets us the best competitive pricing on those additional scope items. Their unit pricing was in line with everyone else. None of the unit pricing seemed to be out of line. So with that, we began discussing contract with Icon Structures to make sure that they were okay with the contract that we're bringing before council tonight. Through that process, Patrick and I worked with Icon, and builder's risk insurance was identified as an area that in the bid package, the language was not quite correct after consulting with the city's insurer as to what they would like to see, where the contractor would carry a builder's risk policy to cover the value of the new work, the contract amount. That is due to the increased risk of fire damage, things of that nature to City Hall due to construction. Just due to the additional activity, there's an increased risk by nature. That builder's risk policy, we talked with Icon Structures, and they indicated that it would cost $5,600 additional. And so the city, they asked for the city to cover that. We requested to split that cost with them 50-50, and they've agreed to that. So you'll notice tonight the bid amount does include an additional, we're asking for approval of an additional $2,800 tonight to approve that builder's risk policy, as opposed to bringing it back for a change order immediately after contract execution. And that'll help speed the process up. Icon has indicated that assuming approval of the contract, they can get bids or get bonds to us in a really quick time frame. They've indicated 2 to 3 days once they've been told to get those bonds in place. And they're excited to start the project. They'd like to start in January if at all possible. They were working on forecasting of procurement and things like that, so that way they kind of know any of the equipment that's going into this project and the lead times on it to prevent this project starting and then having to come to a halt while we wait on equipment to show up. They're trying to schedule it all to where procurement timeframes and construction timeframes all overlap for this project to go off smoothly. They've indicated a construction timeline on this project of 36 weeks. That would include phase 1, which is upstairs and the garden level, and phase 2, which is the rework of the vacated spaces on this floor once people have moved upstairs and downstairs. So that's 36 weeks total. So what they've indicated, which if they were to start in January or even February of next year, would put the project completed by year end 25. So with that, I will stand for any questions on the bids or the contract.
Okay. Questions? Cameron? Just an observation. Look, I mean, you shared it. Looked like real competitive bids. Good, certainly a lot of interest. From my experience in the world, I have been a subcontractor to Icon in the past in previous jobs and had a good experience with that as well. So.
And Icon actually has a representative here tonight. Their proposed superintendent for the project is a DeSoto resident as well. So that was another reason for them wanting to bid on the project. Their office is located in Eudora, so they do have a local tie to the City Hall renovation project as well, just as a note.
Anything from council? I'm not hearing anything. So is there a suggested motion that we have in here? There it is. If we're ready for that, unless someone has a...
I'll make a motion to approve the bids received for the City Council renovation project, including the AV equipment ad alternate, as well as authorizing the city administrator to sign the contract with Icon Structure for the work, subject to city attorney review and approval, in the amount of $3,210,800 with a 10% contingency.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hatemaker,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McMorran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right,
Let's go.
good.
Let's go.
Get the bonds.
Thank you, Cameron. Yeah, nice job on that. I did want to commend you
Yes.
for your hard work on this. You really, Cameron's been spearheading these efforts. I know that there are work sessions that some of us have been involved with, and the wishes and desires of staff, and with working with the architect, it hasn't been an easy thing. So I appreciate your work.
Yep.
Okay. Item 4A, consider contract amendment with SFS Architecture for City Hall renovations.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this is a amendment to the contract for design services with SFS Architecture. We were notified of this a couple of months ago from SFS that one of their engineers had given them an additional services invoice. We had talked with SFS. They worked with the engineer to get more information on what justified this, where this came from, as well as we kind of wanted to hold off on an amendment until we got closer to bid to make sure that there was nothing else that came through, just to kind of simplify the process. Essentially what this amendment is for an additional $19,000 on their design services contract to cover work that was identified throughout the process that was not a part of their initial scope, but was deemed needed for the project to be completed. This included, like I talked about, the AV systems. In talking with Mike and the mayor and other city staff throughout design, it made sense to have it all designed by the design firm that was designing the project as a whole, to ensure that everything worked together, everything went together and tied together seamlessly, because in today's society with all of the smart technology, one hiccup could create things to not work and not talk to each other, as well as design for water service to the building with the additional restrooms in the basement, the kitchenette in the basement. Calculations showed that our current water service would not be sufficient to feed every fixture within City Hall due to the flows that would be required. So the project does show upgrading the water service to City Hall to a larger size to accommodate those flows. And that's essentially what the amendment is for. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right, any questions for Cameron on the contract amendment? Ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract amendment with SFS Architecture for additional design services as part of the City Hall renovation project, primarily related to MEP services provided by Henderson Engineers in the amount of $19,000.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
McMoran,
Yes.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Heidemeyer.
Yeah.
Lane. Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cameron. Item 4B, discuss economic incentive application from Flint Development for the Flint Meadows Housing Development.
Mayor, I have to disclose a conflict of interest
Okay.
on this item, so I will excuse myself.
All righty. Good evening, Council. I am Steve Harder, Director of Development with Flint Development, and we are here tonight to talk about one of our next projects here in DeSoto that we're very excited about. Do we have our...
Yeah, I do. Just before you
Yeah.
get started, you know, this is an initial presentation. Essentially, the topic is an economic incentive request. So as we've done before, our policy is to have the applicant come and present the project and have this feedback discussion before we really engage staff in negotiations. So appreciate you being here, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have your presentation up here. I can just scroll through it if that's okay.
Perfect.
Just
That
tell
works.
me when.
Yeah. So first I want to start off a little bit just about Flint Development for you guys. I'm sure many of you are aware of us with Flint Commerce Center, our first industrial park here in DeSoto. We're very excited about that, and to welcome Panasonic as our tenant in our first building out there. So as we've seen the growth in DeSoto and been able to be a part of that, we've seen the need for more housing in the area. So this project, we've got, if you'll go to the next slide, well, I guess I'll give a little more about Flint Development for those that don't know. So Hunter Harris and Devin Schuster are both the co-founders of that. They've been longtime real estate developers in the Kansas City area, previously at Lane 4 Development. They started Flint Development a little over 4 years ago, and we do industrial development all across the country, including Kansas City. So in Kansas City, we've developed projects in Liberty, Blue Springs, and now here in DeSoto. So we're in several other markets throughout the United States, about 25, I think growing to 26 as of today. So we do this all over the country, developing industrial warehouses. And in each of those communities, we've seen a similar thing happen, like here in DeSoto, where you've got a large basis of new jobs coming in through a group like Panasonic, through our own industrial parks, and a real need for housing. So if you'll go to the next couple slides there. We're a small team. We've got a team of 12. There's myself and a few others on the development side that handle all of our development, engineering, construction, design. And then we've got another staff that handles most of our finances. If you go to the next slide. Just a few other stats about us. I mentioned the 25 markets. We've developed about 18 million square feet of industrial space and counting. We've got about 4 to 6 million square feet under development at any given time. And so far have raised about $500 million of capital. So we're very proud of what we've done on the industrial and are really excited to expand that into the residential side of things. So this is just an example of a few of our tenants. Obviously, we have Panasonic here in DeSoto. We've worked with, many Fortune 500 companies throughout the country, and, look forward to developing, this project, finishing out Flint Commerce Center, and many others. So again, for those that would like to see some of the completed projects, this is just a list of some of those. All right. So this is the property that here at Sunflower and Edgerton Road, 78-acre property, zoned R3, and we've been trying to figure out how we can meet the attainable housing need in DeSoto. We've seen through some of the recent studies, one of them completed in 2021, that showed that DeSoto had a 46% deficit to the housing need of 69 units per year. So we've been trying to come up with a method to service that. We've thought through several opportunities for this project site, and what we've arrived at today is a residential development for single family and townhome use. If you go to the next slide, Mike. So the property that we've got proposed here is a phased development of 226 single family homes along with 110 townhomes. And this will be done over a phased manner, as you can see with the color coding there. That plan is north is up there, if you can orient yourselves to 103rd Street at the bottom of the screen, and we'll build that from 103rd moving north across about 3 years of development. So the goal is to deliver about 80 around the property, and then down in the southeast corner, we'll have a small area for a playground or a small pool. So kind of like what I talked about a little bit earlier, the housing need out of the 20 cities within Johnson County, DeSoto ranked 3rd as far as the highest rate of population growth, and saw significant need for housing. The study was conducted prior to Panasonic coming into town. So when you've got 4,000 jobs coming with phase 1 and potentially more, there is a huge demand for housing. Let's see here. I think we can go to the next slide, Mike. Thank you. So a little bit more about the scope of what we're doing and the reason for the request for the Rural Housing Incentive District. We've got a phased development where we'll be installing almost over 2 miles of street networks, a little over 3 miles of sidewalks. We'll install about 13,000 feet of water line, about 18,000 linear feet of sewer line, along with storm sewer measures and a lot of improvements to the community. All of these homes will be fully electric. We will not be extending gas to the site. So a lot of these homes will step into the newer building code realm of having, fully electric, capable for EVs, capable for, the future green initiatives that are coming in the building code. So with that total, we've got an infrastructure cost around $24 million anticipated for this. And the biggest struggle that we're seeing here, along with many other communities, is trying to get that to a reasonable amount that you can sell a home lot for and develop homes in an attainable price range. So our request tonight is really to talk about the Rural Housing Incentive District to offset some of that infrastructure cost to make these homes more affordable. Our request is ultimately a 15-year RHID at a 75% capture. This will help us to take a project that with a significant infrastructure load pencils in the negative, and this will help us make a modest return off of this and provide housing needs for the community, along with a significant infrastructure boost to this region of DeSoto. On the previous slide, you saw some of the homes that we've got there. We're really excited about the product type that we're working with home builders on. We are in discussions with a national home builder who can build these homes most affordably. We've talked with several local home builders throughout the area, and they struggle with pricing control on a lot of their materials, products, and labor. So we've talked with a lot of national home builders and are talking with a few right now. And we hope that we can provide these homes in the high 300s to low 400,000s. As many of you probably know how the RHID functions in the state of Kansas, we've got a brief slide just talking about the capture of the incremental tax basis, taking this from the base property taxes of the property as it sits today, and capturing that 75% across 15 years of the new property taxes increased on the property. So it's limited to 25 years on eligible costs. Those eligible costs are the infrastructure, like I talked about, among a few others. Primarily, we're focused on that infrastructure cost. There's a few past examples, obviously in Johnson County and Spring Hill, where folks have utilized the RHID, as well as Bonner Springs, and many other examples across the state. Yeah, briefly just about the process here. We've got the first resolution, which is completed, and the Secretary of Commerce approval will be next after the resolution is adopted. Following that will be resolution number 2, which goes towards a public hearing and then ultimately gets sent to the school board and county commissioners for their review. We've had some positive meetings with the school board already. We've met with Alvy and Brian to introduce them to this, and we are going to be presenting at the school board meeting on February 3rd to talk about that. Following that will be the public hearing and then final adoption of the RHID hearing. Again, another slide just kind of going over our project benefits. This will add additional road infrastructure, new utilities to this area. We'll be extending water lines over to the property, working with Evergy on extending additional power capacity to the property. We've worked with Sunflower Development Group on a sewer benefit district to add sanitary sewer to this property along our eastern property boundary. So we'll be contributing to that sewer improvement district. Overall, we think it'll be approximately about $131 million investment when you look at the horizontal and vertical infrastructure to the city. This will obviously provide increased attainable housing options for those that are coming to the city to work at Panasonic and all the other economic development to follow. We will be creating a productive asset from something that is right now just barren land. And during that period, obviously, we'll have about 3 years of added construction jobs to the city. So overall, very, very positive things, and we're looking forward to further benefiting the community with this project. With that, I'll open up for any questions.
All right, questions from council?
For sale or rent?
These will be for sale.
Townhomes as well?
Townhomes as well, yes. Mm-hmm.
Two bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4?
Yeah, so likely it'll be a mix based on some of the demographic studies of the home builders. Likely 3 bedrooms will be the bulk of it.
Two different questions. Looking at your portfolio of experience, you've been mostly in industrial.
Yep.
I'm curious to hear more about, what has motivated you to kind of move into this residential development and particularly this one.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great question. I was actually hoping someone would ask that. Industrial, most of the complexity is with the site work. So as an engineer myself, love diving into the complexities of large sites like industrial. This one is a perfect offshoot for us because it is primarily site work. We're selling home development pads. So what we do every day, our bread and butter, is heavy earthwork moving, utilities, roads, sidewalks, those type of improvements. So as far as taking that next step into doing residential, this is a good deviation from that, from an engineering and design standpoint. The other side of it is we've seen the need in the 25 different markets that we've been in. Everywhere we go for these industrial communities and commerce centers that we build, there becomes a huge housing need for that as well. So we're looking to step into that here in DeSoto and hopefully other markets that we're in as well.
And then are you looking to have kind of one builder that's the partner for, kind of the end-to-end project, or more a variety of builders depending kind of thing?
Yeah, ideally, yes, it will be one builder that takes down continuous phases of the project. There is an opportunity where, we will form an HOA and it could be a multitude of home builders if needed. But ideally, it is one home builder, provides consistency to it, and a consistent supply of homes every year.
And then how are you planning to approach it with the builder to ensure that, you know, if the RHID is approved, that you're putting any kind of mechanism or insurances in place to, you know, guarantee that at the end we finish with attainable housing and that, you know, that the end product meets the intent that we're setting forward
Yes.
at the beginning?
Yeah, we're working with home builders that are specifically interested in that need. So I'd say first off, that's who we're that's really all who we're talking to. Secondly, this area, it being the proximity to Panasonic and this type of area, the homes that they will be building are best suited for that market. Versus going to somewhere like Olathe or Lenexa, these are the type of homes that they will be able to sell at a much better rate. So they'll be incentivized for that. The lot size, we've reduced the lot size, and those will allow for 3-bedroom homes and some 4-bedroom homes. But the style of neighborhood that we're designing, I think, will allow for that. As far as, you know, answering that any other way is the economics of the area will drive that decision.
And then you mentioned a price point in the high 3s to low 400s. Is that for the single family homes? What kind of price point are you hoping to attain with the townhomes?
Yeah, for the townhomes, it would be, you know, in the 2s for sure. From what we've talked to, again, I can't speak to the home builders themselves. We're trying to work to get the lowest lot price possible so that they can go in there and build that. Yeah.
Super, thank you.
Yeah.
You would be looking at the 50-foot lot size then, probably?
Yes, we're going to go with 52, just to give it a little bit of grace there on both sides of it. But yes, yeah, about 50.
Setback on each side?
Yes, yep.
Okay, questions over here?
My questions were already asked, so.
Looking forward to hear how your conversations with the school board go.
Yeah.
Obviously, that has some bearing on how we go forward, because they hold the keys, right, to the veto on
Yeah.
on the project. From our perspective now, if there are no other questions for
Are these slab home or basement homes?
questions.
Yeah, it's a great question. The home builders we're talking to right now are discussing slab homes. Some of the topography on this site, specifically on the east side, will make it more economical to do basements. So we've left that up to them to do.
On these slab homes, are you doing any kind of procedures for severe weather, safe rooms or anything on that scale?
I believe in conversations, they have a few different options for that. I think some are using the safe rooms that are either built in the garage or part of the living space in the pantry area, but they are aware of those requirements. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
No, it's fine. Good questions. From our perspective, you know, it's just basically the nod for staff to continue the negotiations. I think Jeff did prepare
Yeah, financial feasibility.
financial
Yeah.
feasibility that.
Yeah. He did, as we normally do, we have him take a first look at the finances of the development team, and his memos included in the staff report there, essentially a green light on phase 1 in terms of his work there. So, yeah, Mayor, like you're saying, this is a initial conversation. Any feedback, any feelings, any direction for staff as we move forward, and then we'll continue the process. Obviously, yeah, interested to see what the school board direction might be, and then discuss with the Economic Incentives Committee before you see it back again.
All right. Any feedback then for staff?
Okay. Looking at our incentive matrix, they're asking for 75% 15-year. Our incentive matrix gives up to 80%, but for 10 years if it's a IRB type of abatement. So there's a little bit of difference there, but at the same time, an IRB is going to give sales tax exemption, and the RHID, does it give sales tax? It doesn't give sales tax exemption, does it?
No, Not by default.
So that's one difference where
Yeah.
that percentage difference is gonna make up, or the time difference is gonna make up. They're asking for a little bit less, a little bit longer. The fact that sales tax exemption is not included. The fact that the school district, like the TIF, is still made whole on at least the 20 mills that are protected
Yeah.
comes into play as well. To where regardless, we're an IRB, we have to take in consideration the school district. We still want to take the school district into consideration, but by nature, the RHID is protecting some of that already, to where the slightly longer time, less percentage, I don't have a problem with, because of the offsets of what would normally be under an IRB. And we don't have RHID in our matrix at this point.
Right.
So that's where it's kind of that, okay, looking at what we did say as a council is approved for that location, this comes pretty much right in line with it.
Yeah, I would agree, with everything you said, you know, in terms of protecting the school and, the mechanism here, and I think, you know, for me, we've talked for a long time about the need for more attainable housing, and this sounds like a really, viable pathway, to get there and to potentially set out a, kind of pathway and example for other communities that are having, industrial development come to them with, you know, onshoring and growth of industrial development in the US.
I was gonna say, the only other thing, and this would be a cost center to you, it would be nice with that many homes, most likely with students, to see like a clubhouse with internet access or something where they could have tutors or some common place.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Any other direction?
Only thing I would suggest is make sure we have some kind of project on the project start date, and give us some kind of, if we're gonna agree to this, that we get some kind of start date, and if it doesn't happen, then we've gotta go through this whole process again.
You want a sunset and start, a defined start and a sunset for the incentive that would
Yes,
be
sir.
negotiated through the development agreement?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mike, is that enough?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Thank
for the
you.
presentation.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
And team.
All right, we'll move on. Item C, consider 2024 budget amendment.
Yeah, we'll wait for Councilman Hall.
Oh, yeah. Kevin, get back. Thank you for the reminder, Mike. I'm ready to move on. I gotta get some meat on this one.
We got, oh, that's right.
All right, now we'll move on.
Now we can.
Item C, consider 2024 budget amendment.
Yes, council, this item, we've discussed the likely need for amendments to these funds throughout the year. You'll remember, the amendments for tonight involve the law enforcement fund and the water fund and sewer fund. On the law enforcement fund, you'll remember that we added a power shift provision mid-year that increased the amount of the contract for half the year. We'll be discussing our 25 contract later in the agenda. But that brought about a need for an increased budget authority for that fund. When we do these budget amendments, they are, the statutory authority lies only in the maximum expenditure amount that we certified during our budget process last year for this year. It's irrelevant of revenues, doesn't matter. So even though the general fund or law enforcement fund might have exceeded the revenue and the fund balance going up, we still need a budget amendment if we're going to exceed the total amount of expenditure for the fund. So we're going to be doing that in the law enforcement fund by a bit. So that's generally the reason for the need for that. The other ones are the sewer and the water funds. Similarly, we hired personnel in those two departments that were budgeted for 2025, but we hired them early in 2024 because we had service demands associated largely with these new projects that we've got going on. And and the construction activities that just generated a lot more work for us. Had a need to hire a service sewer collection tech and a water treatment plant operator early. So those three essentially personnel additions required us to, were the driving factor behind the need for the budget amendments. So the format of the budget amendment is there in Exhibit A. The three funds are listed. The expenditures for '24, the previous adopted budget expenditures are there, and the proposed expenditures are there. So Exhibit A essentially is the certification that I'll ask your approval on tonight for those amendments. It is a public hearing item, so be sure and hold the public hearing before we have the vote. The other half of the memo is some updated 5-year projections that I produced in the context of getting the budget amendments in place. I've provided just some notes on those projections. As I mentioned, the revenues in the general fund, as we've been tracking all year, are quite a bit above the budgeted amounts, have increased these projections and caused quite an increase in the year-end fund balance, specifically in the general fund. We've talked about the sales tax revenues that have exceeded the budget amount by $1.7 million. It's important to note that a lot of the sales tax is related to general retail sales activity, but also Evergy's construction activity. They pay sales tax on those, so those big poles, big ugly poles that went up, the transformers they're buying, a big part of that is that. And so we'll need to monitor that as Evergy's efforts subside and as we transition from the construction workforce into the production workforce. We're going to have to look at sales tax real closely and track that closely. Do not expect it to meet or exceed these levels next year. I really expect it to take a drop back down, which is fine because we've estimated quite a bit very conservatively for the sales tax next year, as we have done in the past. So I don't expect any budget problem. It's just something to be aware of. The other major infusion of cash is the investment revenues, largely from the Panasonic deposits for the public infrastructure. We're going to end the year with about $3.8 million of those just investment proceeds. Really, zero of that was budgeted at all for 2024. We will have similar revenues in 2025, but not nearly that much. We just won't be holding as much cash. So they'll be going down. We've also collected revenues for the building inspection department, about $700,000. That's kind of an in and out thing for the third-party building inspector. Franchise fees, we thought we'd be seeing some significant franchise fees in '24, but we just haven't. They haven't started any production lines. The construction activities haven't generated the type of power demand to really see any appreciable increase in franchise revenues. We expect still, though, that as the production starts up in early '25 and they bring on production lines throughout '25, we don't see any long-term softening of that projection, but we just haven't seen it yet. So overall, when you take everything into account, the general fund revenues exceeded the budget by about $4.2 million this year. So what that means is that our 24 year-end balance is $7.8 million, and 25 year-end balance would be otherwise $6.36 million. If you look at the 5-year projections all the way through, they remain at above 50%. Our fiscal policy suggests a 30% budget reserve. So we should have some discussions here in the early part of next year about what, if anything, to do about that. Just looking at a taxation policy standpoint or public improvements, or there's just a world of stuff to discuss when you look and you see projections like that. So probably reasonable to start having those discussions before we need to kick off the 26 budget cycle, so that if there's adjustments to be made in 25, new initiatives or whatever they might be. I don't want to put plant any seeds here, but we would like to identify those early in 25. If we need to make a budget amendment in 25, we'll do that again at that time. So
Okay.
that's the report, Mayor. Remember, public hearing on the budget.
So with that introduction, I'm going to officially open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak regarding the proposed budget amendment, please come to the podium and state your name and address. I do not see anybody. I'm going to close the public hearing, and we can move on to address this item. Any questions for Mike on the report or the memo or the budget amendment?
More just a comment than a question, just to say, you know, I think this is a great place for our community to be in. And, you know, I think, you know, I look forward to at the beginning of next year starting to look at, you know, identifying what is that policy that best serves our community? What are those, you know, potential improvements to put into the CIP? I remember with this budget when we were discussing, you know, increasing the road maintenance budget, which we did, there was a reflection that even with that, you know, there's potentially even room there to continue to improve the, you know, streets and other quality of life things for our residents. And I know we have the survey currently out and about, so looking forward to having that feedback. And then would we, you know, need to schedule a workshop or workshops in the beginning of the year, since that sounds like something that's a little potentially
Yeah,
bigger lift than
that's-
at your typical council meeting?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right, looking for a motion to approve the certification, Exhibit A.
I'll make a motion, we approve the exhibit for certification, Exhibit A.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hattelmeyer,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McMorran.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
All right. Item D, consider ordinance 2636 authorizing a loan from the electric utility fund to purchase 2025 dump trucks.
Yes, Madam Council, this is a request to purchase two Peterbilt trucks through a cooperative purchasing agreement with Sourcewell. The 2025 budget called for three Peterbilts, one for water and two for streets. Our initial cost estimates were taken in late spring, and unfortunately, as you can see in the memo, the costs for the vehicles, and particularly the equipment, including the beds, have gone up significantly. So as a result, our requests are scaled back to two vehicles, one in street and one in water. These vehicles kind of meet the immediate needs of the department and will allow them to operate at peak performance. These purchases will be made through an agreement with the electric utility fund through the ordinance. And the department will make payments back to the electric utility fund, an interest rate set in the budget, which we set at 5%. Delivery of these vehicles will be scheduled in the late spring. And then on that third vehicle, as Mike had mentioned in the budget report, if there is a discussion about additional purchases, this vehicle on this third Peterbilt would be included on that list for council's consideration. So with that, I recommend approval of the ordinance and accepting of the quote.
All right, any questions for Brandon? There are
No,
no
just
questions.
observation, based on the years of the vehicles we've got a lot of good use out of them. Yeah, so,
And they're definitely at the end of their useful life.
yeah, well used. I'll make a motion to accept the quotes from KC Peterbilt and American Equipment for the purchase and equipping of two Peterbilt trucks not exceeding $544,550 plus a 10% contingency. I further move to adopt ordinance 2636 as presented and authorize the city administrator to sign the agreements pending final approval by the city attorney.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hunter-Michael.
Yes.
McMorran,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Mayor Walker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item E, consider agreement for law enforcement services with Johnson County Sheriff's Office.
This agreement marks a transition from our annual contract with Johnson County Sheriff to a 3-year contract for law enforcement services. The shift is in part an effort to spread out the costs associated with the additional power shift officer that the council approved in May of 2024. The contract is for 24/7 year-round coverage for law enforcement in DeSoto with 2 additional power shifts totaling 80 hours a week to assist with peak call volume hours. The cost of the 3-year contract is approximately $1.3 million, with the 2025 amount being roughly $970,000. The remaining years, 2026 and 2027, include modest increase on that 2025 number. The development agreement with Panasonic allocates $50,000 for law enforcement services, which we're using to offset the cost of the additional power shift employee. And the contract has been reviewed by the city attorney, county legal, and the sheriff's office, and is pending Board of County Commissioner approval in January. Just from a staff perspective, we've been happy with the services provided by the sheriff's office, and we recommend approving the contract pending BOCC approval, and allow Patrick to make any necessary revisions should the commission have any questions or minor revisions. We do have a representative from the sheriff's office here if you'd like to answer any questions. He's our liaison. But with that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Captain Dan Dirks, the Patrol Commander for the Sheriff's Office, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I was just curious if there's been, kind of any feedback or, either directly from the community or from the officers in terms of since we've added that power shift car, and, any kind of feedback that's been received or, noticeable activity?
I can't tell you, with the additional hours, we've had the officers more present in the community. As far as specific comments, I have not personally received any. I do have one of my power shift officers here, right here. If any comments that you have received personally, Deputy Shelton?
I know with Panasonic, it has been a little bit more of an influx of calls, and so having somebody on the day shift and having somebody on the evening shift has really presented a lot of opportunity for having like 2 cars there. We've had a couple of big calls as of late where it's been really nice to have 2 people there and available, especially one designated to be there for DeSoto. So I'll say that, at least from our end, it's been very, very nice to have 2 people up here.
Super, thank you for sharing that.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
And Brendan, we were gonna ask for that revision just to clarify the.
Yeah, the power shift, yeah.
And just, so that's something we'll be talking to county about. Don't think it'll be an issue.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion?
I was gonna say, one comment.
Okay.
I know occasionally we hear about, should we have our own police department, should we not have our own police department? Having volunteered and worked with the sheriff's department as a volunteer since 2010, had feedback from both sides, and they have served us well and will continue to serve us well for where we are now. I'm not saying that 5-10 years in the future there's not a need to transition, and they'd probably go, okay, there's going to be a time where we can't handle it, and so we've got mechanisms in place to start looking at that. But at the current time and for the next foreseeable future, they serve us professionally, they serve us well, and they have the coverage that has provided what we need that we would not be able to have from our own force. So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the 3-year agreement for law enforcement services with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office totaling $3,095,372 as presented, and authorize the city attorney to make minor revisions to the contract if necessary, pending final review and approval by the Johnson County Board of County Commissioners.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Daniels.
Yes.
Hanemichael.
Yes.
Tripp.
Yes.
McBrand.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, no executive session tonight, so we will move on to advisory reports, city administrator.
Just a few small things, council. Cameron, I'm glad you're still here because I'm gonna talk about the power switchover this weekend.
I was gonna ask if I could make a comment about that.
Would you, Mayor, with your permission?
Yep,
Can
sure.
Can I have
Sure.
Cameron? Yeah.
So as all of you know, the generator project outside these windows has been dragging on for a number of months waiting on equipment. All equipment is here. It's all been delivered. The electrician was on site today beginning to pull wire. The plan is for Saturday morning, roughly 7 a.m. Evergy will be here to disconnect power to all of City Hall and the community center. We have a plan in place for backup generator to provide power for the food pantries, fridges, and freezers, so that way they don't lose any of their product and they can still serve the community and hand out food on Saturday. But this weekend is the plan to take down power and do the tie-in of all of the new equipment to our existing service, and then have power turned back on to City Hall sometime, hopefully before lunch on Sunday. If worst case scenario would be Sunday afternoon, to where Monday morning everything is up and operational. Just as is right now, we've also got Foley Equipment, the provider of the generator, scheduled for January 5th and 6th, I believe. Might be 6th and 7th. Apologize for not knowing that right off the top of my head, but they're going to come out and do startup and commissioning. We've got fuel delivered this week, so the generator is fueled. The tie-in will happen this weekend, and hopefully the first week after the start of the new year, we will have a fully functioning emergency generator, and that project can finally be put to bed.
Very exciting. It's been such a long wait on that.
So,
Is there any changes you had to make due to the cold weather on the fuel?
no. Nope.
Okay,
So- We are good to go.
So a couple of impacts. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, you're good.
We're gonna have to take the servers down, and the servers our internal servers handle electronic bill pay and some of those things, the Parks and Rec, the online submission thing. Those are gonna be down over the weekend. So I think we've got that on social media, notice for that. Beyond that, we're hopeful that the public won't see really any impacts.
No, I mean, the largest impact would, like you said, the bill pay, and then any community center access will not be available this weekend, and that does include Great Life. Their fitness center down here will be closed for the weekend.
I'm told I have to get my 90-day-old tuna sandwich out of the fridge.
Yes.
Saving that.
Yep, so that's
Okay.
a good reminder. Yeah, we gotta make sure
It's kind of a hassle.
everything's out.
Any concern about the need for IT support or anything, just to make sure everything comes back up?
We have in-house IT support available.
Yep,
So
so
we'll
I've,
cover that.
yep, so
Yeah,
his
good.
plan is to shut the
Yeah.
servers down and all computers down and unplugged from the wall tomorrow evening, to where when power is disconnected from City Hall, there's no risk there. And then he is planning on coming in Sunday afternoon, evening, to restart everything to ensure that when staff returns on Monday morning, there's no noticeable delay to services. So the plan is to have servers back online Sunday evening, so that would include bill pay and things of that nature. So,
It's good exercise for coordination of construction activities around City Hall. We're
Yes.
gonna have some of that this
Yep.
year. And then on that note, City Hall, the holidays coming up, closed 24th, 25th, and January 1st,
Okay,
as expected. That was it from me, Mayor.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you. City attorney,
Nothing for me.
all right. City engineer,
Nothing for me tonight?
all right. Brandon, assistant city administrator.
Nothing, I just wanted to follow up, we've gone kind of quiet. The community feasibility study, we have sent that off. So that is ready for testing. We should be getting that survey out about mid-January. Just wanted to kind of follow up. I wanted to thank Councilmember Daniels and Councilmember Hanna-Michael for sitting on the panel and kind of working through those questions. But outside of that, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Council comments. Danny, anything for the group tonight?
Just congratulations again to the Assistant City Administrator for completing his challenge of higher education, should I say?
Yeah, thank you.
And congratulations to him on that. And I know the staff and Cameron's been real busy with that generator, and glad to hear that that's finally going to be online. And thank Cameron for the extra effort there. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Victoria? All right. Rob?
So attended the planning commission meeting with Mayor Tuesday night, and the K10 and Kill Creek development was before them for the commercial and the residential, and it was a very different meeting from the prior meeting. So there were 16 residents, 4 comments, 1 being the Chamber of Commerce and 3 being residents, and both of those zonings passed 6-0 in favor of. So very different meeting there. And working with Brandon on the community center feasibility, and Kevin will back this up, it just reinforced how different of a position we are as a city. Like we saw in the revenue report, as far as the budgeted revenues versus income revenues that we're seeing, to where we're seeing that across the board, where we are definitely in a different position than those cities financially because of the growth we've been seeing, and because of that, it's going to be benefiting and has been benefiting our residents, whether it be the tax cuts or the capability to provide more trails, sidewalks, road maintenance, every aspect of what's happening. So just reinforce that unique position that we are in, that not all cities get to be in. So.
All right, thank you. Courtney?
You know, I think just reinforcing some of what Rob said, it was really exciting to see the ribbon get cut on 103rd Street, and to, you know, realize that improvement, and to really see not only a complete street, but really a transformational infrastructure project for the south of town. You know, of course, having discussed the Flint development, that would, you know, that development would come into our community with, you know, bike trails and walking trails into DeSoto, and I think that's into the community, and I think that's just really exciting to see the community coming together in that way. And then, you know, I'm excited to, you know, it was in our consent agenda, but I do want to, you know, say that I'm excited that the contract was approved with USD 232 for the public art piece, and I really look forward to continuing to work with Brandon and the Art Council and the students on that project. And then otherwise, wish everyone a very happy and safe holiday season.
All right, thank you. Kevin?
I'll just echo the sentiment about wishing everybody happy holidays, and hope everybody gets a little bit of downtime and some family time and time with friends.
I'll tag on a little bit about the 103rd. It's nice to see our one of the infrastructure projects get knocked off, you know, get completed, and the, you know, first of 4 big ones we got going, a number of big ones we got going on, but it's nice to be able to cross one off the list, and that's a very visible one to have done. So congratulate the construction team and the design team, and appreciate the efforts of KDOT and Joe. I called Joe out in the meeting, my comments during the ribbon cutting. Do appreciate your efforts there as well.
It's very nice to bike and run on.
Yeah, it is. Well, I don't know about the running part. I'd like to run on it all you want. And happy holidays, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
This conference is no longer being recorded.